Hi guys, Viking Reefing here. Today we are revisiting a subject that is near and dear to my heart. It's one of the reasons why I started this YouTube channel to begin with. And it's also the subject of one of the most popular videos on my channel. How to keep non-reef safe fish in a reef tank. As you can see, I have several fish in this tank that are normally not considered good reef inhabitants. I have angels, I have some butterflies, I have some other stuff that most people won't consider reef safe. So, first things first, the title of this video is kind of deceptive because I hate the term reef safe or non-reef safe. I feel that it's a completely moronic term. It basically describes nothing whatsoever. If you would have a look at, for example, the goldflake angel, most people and care guides online would say that it's not reef safe. I'm not even sure what that means. From my perspective, if you want to call something reef safe, then there shouldn't be the slightest chance that it would be causing any sort of trouble in a reef tank. And if you define it like that, well, most fish are out, really. I've seen clownfish host Gonioporas and other corals to death. I've seen yellow tanks go rogue and eat scallies and zoanthids. So that's basically why I think the term reef safe is a completely useless term that we, as a hobby, should stop using. I find that most fish are on some sort of a spectrum. I have a very hard time to believe that anything apart from like huge parrotfish that would actually just take big chunks of corals can't be kept in some sort of a reef tank. One thing that spurred me to make well, a follow-up video on this subject was that if you've been following along the progression of my Nias Opus build, you will have seen that I had 2 orange spotted filefish in that tank. And you will also have seen that I recently added a very nice Trichophilia and a very nice colony of micromucilords. Well, everything went perfectly well for the first 3 weeks, I think. And after a little while, I started noticing that firstly, the Trichophilia didn't open whatsoever. It was really like drawn in and really poorly. So I started like testing parameters and stuff like that. Couldn't find an issue. Thought it might be light shock or something, but why would it be doing well for 3 weeks before starting to act up now? So I figured something is messing with these corals. The orange spotted filefish had been completely fine with the torches that I had in that tank for the longest time, so I didn't really suspect them. I do have a peppermint shrimp in that tank, so I started like looking at the tank at night and early morning to see if he was messing with the coral somehow. And I had also added a new Tomini tank to that tank, so I thought maybe he was going rogue. I found nothing for next week, but one morning when I went down and started like shining a flashlight, I could see the orange spotted fish picking at both corals, so they were the culprits. So they were completely safe with the torches that I had. I had some Aquapora frags. I also had rock flower anemones in there as well. They didn't bother anything, but they apparently went for the trachees and the micromucils. That's a shame, but that also goes to show that they were completely safe with those other corals. So even though they have kind of a reputation of not being reef safe, they were completely fine. So what I did was I put them in here. Where are they? You can see here on the top right of your screen, they are below that big millipore colony. And what most people would be worried about is that, oh no, they are obligate corallivores in the wild, specifically on acros, so they'll kill your acros. That simply won't happen. Acropora are extremely resilient. They swim around the tank and pick at the acros all day, and the acros are fine. Same thing with the angelfish, and also like Moorish idols, butterfly fish and whatnot. They just swim around the tank, pecking at the corals every now and again, and the corals aren't really bothered by it. So that just goes to show that different fish are completely safe in different kind of environments. If I would take my trachea from the Nios tank and put it in here, the angels would eat it like that. But they are completely fine with the stocking I have in this tank, which is predominantly Acropora with some torches and a Goniopora. However, even though acros are highly resilient towards fish nipping at them, they can't handle unlimited amounts of stress. So since when fish are picking at the corals, that will cause some sort of a stress in the coral. If there's too much stress, the coral may die eventually, or it might get tissue recession and things of that nature. So how do you prevent your fish from going completely hog wild on your corals? Well, it's quite simple actually. You feed them, and you feed them a lot. Most fish in here, apart from the orange-spotted filefish, aren't obligate corallivores. So provided that the fish stay well fed, they won't really go after corals. The only times I've seen angels and butterflies do actual damage to acros is when my auto feeder has run dry. I normally feed the tank 4 times a day with the auto feeder, just to make sure that the angels are always completely full. There's no real need to look for food from other sources than aquarium food. The times I've forgotten to refill it, I've started seeing some like bite marks and stuff on the corals from the angels really going hard at them. Another key to have success with fish that might bother the corals just a little bit is to have a sufficient mass of corals. As you can see in this tank, I have, for example, a huge green slimer, and most of the corals here are large colonies, which means that the damage that is being caused is spread out over a large amount of corals. If I were to have a, say, 300-liter tank and I have 5 or 6 frags in there, and I put a couple of angels in with them, I'm quite sure that no matter how much I fed the tank, those angels will stress those little bitty frags to death over time. So having a large amount of corals is also a prerequisite for being able to keep these kinds of fish in a reef tank successfully. Something that you also need to be keeping in mind is just because they can be kept successfully in a reef tank, such as this, you will probably be somewhat limited in terms of choices when it comes to corals. Like I said, I wouldn't put a Trichophilia in here. I'm fairly sure that the angels would just have a field day with it. In my experience, torches, frog spawn, and Gonioporus are generally good options if you want to keep LPS in a system that has angels or butterflies. Here you can see the pair of orange-spotted filefish, and they normally just hang around picking at the corals. For example, this Millie here, I saw them picking at it just now. As you can see, it still has polyps out. On the left side where they were picking, it's kind of drawn in, but the polyps will eventually come back out. Tank size matters as well. I find that if you have a large tank, not only the massive corals help, but also that there's more swimming room, basically, and the fish, they don't get bored as easily, it seems, so they have less tendency to pick at the corals. If you do end up in trouble with some fish messing with the corals anyways, even though you've implemented some of these strategies, I also find that moving a coral might be a good idea. For example, I used to have a Maxima clam before a mishap with spiking iodine levels did that poor guy in. My goldflake was picking at it quite frequently. What I did was I moved it. I find that some fish have pretty designated routes throughout the tank. If you just move a particular piece of coral, or a clam in this case, out of that designated route, fairly often they will leave it alone after that. I don't think we as a hobby need to be that terribly concerned about fish picking at the corals. I mean, look at these beauties. Don't you want to keep these guys in your reef tank? Some of the most stunning fish that you can get in the hobby are considered not reef safe. One addition that I'll probably be getting for this tank after Christmas sometime is some corallivore butterflies. For the longest time, I've been wanting a pair of Arabian butterflies and a scribbled butterfly. The success I've had with my orange spotted filefish and converting them to prepared foods has given me some confidence in terms of trying those species that are considered very difficult to keep in an aquarium. And I've been wanting to keep those butterflies for almost as long as I've been in the hobby, so over 2 decades. And provided I can get them to eat, I have no doubt in my mind that it will work out just fine keeping them with the corals in this tank. I'm fairly confident that they will peck at the corals, but I don't see that being a problem. The final note I want to leave you with is people have a tendency to gauge SPS health or acro health based on polyp extension. I don't agree with that at all, at least not in terms of daytime polyp extension. Your polyp extension will be reduced when you keep these kinds of fish. But that's natural, that's normal. That's what happens in the wild as well. So for example, this tenuis does have a fair amount of polyps out. I think something picked at it just a little bit ago, so it's kind of drawn in. But if you look at it during the night time, it's so fuzzy that you wouldn't believe. And that if you've ever gone diving and looked at corals in the wild, they basically have no polyp extension whatsoever during the daytime, due to fish picking at them all throughout the day. So I'm not quite sure how this notion about, oh, the angel, it picked twice on my acro, it's gonna die, how that came about. Since corals are constantly being picked at in the wild. You just have to make sure that you do some preparation and have the proper conditions for your corals to thrive, and they will do fine with most species of fish that you would like to keep. I hope that you found this interesting. If there's any questions or comments, please post them down below. I try to respond to each and every comment I get. I would really appreciate it if you would give this video a like and perhaps even hit the subscribe button. It really helps the channel out. I think that's it for today. Happy reefing and have a good one. Bye.